welcome to today's video. It's got a Ratchet 2-litre turbo diesel. It's a T350, length 3, height 3, and we'll be doing a rear disc and pads. I'll be doing
Run down on the parts. So we have our brake disc for the rear. These are 308mm. They're the same as the front, but they are specified as rear. That's a part number over there. Come in a pair of 2. And then we also have our rear pads to go with them. And in regard to the tools that we need, obviously we need a way to get our vehicle up into the air. So I have a rated jack stand. I believe these transits weigh in at 2.1 tons. So obviously you have an axle stand and a jack stand that can support that. We need a brake cleaner, of course, just to clean and prep our surfaces. And just going on to other sundries that we'll need over here, I've got some Ceratec, which is our grease for the slide pins, and I've got some Brembo Be Quiet, which is essentially the same thing. Just looking at a little image on the back, these will go on our pads. Okay, in regards to the tools, optional impact makes life a lot easier to get the wheel off, and stubborn bolts. We'll need a 19mm spanner. I've got various ratchets here. I've got a breaker bar, I've got a ratchet. I'll be using a half drive and a 3/4 drive. So the only sizes you'll need is 36mm. That'll be for our hub over there. If you don't have impact, do this whilst it's on the ground, otherwise it'll be very difficult to do otherwise. We will need a 13mm, a 15mm, and a 10mm, or a E12 if you have an E12, but 10mm does the same job as that, and of course a 19 and a 21mm socket. So I'm going to be jacking up the vehicle. I'm not going off the pinch weld, this is optional, but just underneath I'll be going off our cross beam over there. Okay, you don't want to do it on any of the suspension joints, so I'm going to be lifting the vehicle there. If I'm doing this incorrectly, please correct me in the comments, but this is how I do it. What I'm doing first is a quick wire brush off all the surfaces, just to remove all the dirt and grime. I'm going to show you how to do that in a sec. Okay, first thing, we want to be removing our caliper, which is this part, and that's held in by a 19mm square here and a 13mm on the back. So what I'll do, I'll just give you a better view of this. Give me a second. Caliper, and just to show you from the back, we have a 13mm bolt here. This is going to be our 19, where that's going to sit, and then likewise on the bottom we have the same configuration where we have a 13 here and a 19 there. So we're going to remove that. So to make life a bit easier, 19mm spanner on the square. Hold that firm. You can use 2 spanners if you like. We've got power tools. Make life a lot easier. Okay, we're not going to be reusing these. They've got Loctite red on them, so we're going to throw them away responsibly. And we'll get the new ones on in a sec, and I'm just going to do the bottom one now. I've got you lot on the selfie camera here, hope you can see this, and there's adequate amount of light. So 19 there, likewise as I said, you can use a spanner. There we go, and we're out. Happy days. Remove both bolts on the caliper, and as a cautionary measure, I've put wheel chock stands on either of the front wheels. What we're going to have to do now is drop the handbrake. So being very careful that the vehicle doesn't roll forward, we need to be doing this on a flat platform. We want to have just our foot on the brake, make sure it doesn't roll forward, release that slowly. Okay, and we're going to jump back out again. Okay, so now we're going to have to remove our wheel bearing, which is this outer face, to get to our disc. So we're just going to loosen these off now. These are all E12. Okay, so I've still got a 10mm socket on here. I'm just going to drive these bolts out.
Put them on the side.
Now we're going to remove our caliper. So sometimes you'll struggle to get this out with hands, so you can always use a pry bar or a screwdriver just to lift that off. So I'm going to try to pop that aside, and we're quite low to the ground anyway, so that's just touching the floor. It's not putting any strain in the brake line. And whilst we're here, you can pop out the pads. If they don't come out with your hands, then you can always use a screwdriver and just pop them out. Okay, so these are pads, as you see, actually not bad, quite good condition, but because the disc has not been changed, that's our main job today. We're going to put in some new disc and pads on that. And now whilst you're there, you can take off the old shims as well. Just be very careful not to do them with your hands, they are very sharp. I've learned from experience before where I've split them in my finger, they bleed a lot. So let's get them out of the way. We'll be replacing these as well. I'm going to be removing our caliper retainer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place the camera over there, show you the rear side of this. Okay, so our caliper retainer is held in by two 15mm bolts. These will generally be quite mucky, so just give them a quick clean with your wire brush. 15mm socket, and that's going on our 3/8 over here. I'm just going to wind these out. That one's going to be a bit difficult to get to, so you can get a ratchet in there, or if you're fancy like me, you can use an electric ratchet. These make life a hell of a lot easier. Just make sure it's going in the right direction. I'm just going to pop that over there. And we're out. Keep these safe. Got our caliper retainer out. It'd be a good idea to give this a clean with a wire brush as well, and a bit of brake cleaner. I'm going to do that now. Now that our caliper housing is nice and clean, what we're going to do, I'll pop out our guide pins. So you want to be careful not to pull out the bush from here, otherwise we're going to get an ingress of dirt. But if we pinch here, and we can pull out our guide pins, we're going to give them a good clean and degrease and re-grease them with some Ceratec. It's a quick bit of maintenance, spray them with a bit of brake cleaner, and give them a wipe with a rag. Okay, what we'll do now, once you've got them clean, obviously with some clean gloves and some clean hands, I'm not going to be doing them just yet, but with some Ceratec, shout out to my good friend Lewis for giving me this. We're going to put this on our guide pins, okay? So you can be generous with it, just coat it all around our guide pin, and then we'll pop them back into the bushes, okay? So this there. Now we have to remove our disc. This is going to come off as one assembly. They both go together, and this is where we use our biggest socket. 36mm black ones are your impact sockets. This one comes as part of a Halford Advance. If it breaks, it breaks. So we're going to stick that on there. Using our impact, obviously safety, put some eyewear on if you want. Okay, so that's off. Big 36mm socket. Keep that safe. And in theory, this should all just pull out in one go. That was easy, weren't it? We'll just keep that aside, and what we'll do, we'll pull off our wheel bearing. Okay, so that's the wheel bearing off. We're going to give this a good clean as well, because that's our bearing there. We're going to give this a clean, and we're going to throw this disc away responsibly. Once again, just to prep the surface, wire brush, brake cleaner, clean gloves, clean hands. We're going to use the same Ceratec for our slide pins. We're going to apply this onto our hub here and onto the bearing, and also our guide pins. So I'll just do the guide pins first quickly. As I said, you know, be generous, but not too much. A little dab, work it in, no homo. And then what we'll do, just pop a little bit on the top as well. There we go. And we'll slide these in. So we just got to bear in mind, one's got this little black stuff on it. I don't know what it does, but that one goes on the top of it, okay? So that one, we're just going to stick it in to there, okay? And you want to hear that pop, and that's the air coming out. So with our new brake disc, what we're going to do, we're going to put our bearing in. So we want the studs facing up and facing us. We're going to have to line up all the holes on the bearing with the disc. They are E12. Likewise, you can use a 10mm. They still grip fine. I'm going to slide our disc back into the surface. So on the right hand side here I've got a taper. I'm going to have to line up our washer in the same way. This is a very heavy disc, by the way. So I'm just going to start to slide this on. Likewise, I'm just going to line this up. There we go. Push that washer all the way back. 36mm. We're just going to hand thread that in first, as much as we can. And then with our 36mm socket, we're going to full send it. Reverse now, so we've already fitted our disc and bearing on. Next we're going to be doing our caliper housing. Okay, so we've already given this a good clean with a wire brush and brake cleaner, and now within our brake pad kit we're going to fit the shims and grease them up. Okay, so we're going to get out these shims. Yeah, they do have a certain orientation into how they fit. We don't want this tab facing the inside disc, we want that facing the outside. Okay, so just to show you, for example, you want that facing the outside.
So we don't want that facing the inside, we want that facing the outside. And they do sit over here. If you want, they have little tabs, you can hammer them down if you like. I'm not too fussy. So be quiet, as you see. I'm just applying a small tab onto each of these shims. Or alternatively, you can apply this to the pad tab onto a finger. That's probably enough for all four, to be honest. I'm just going to work that in to all the pins, onto the shim, sorry. Just so the pads can move freely. Likewise, a little dab, less is more. Just work it in around, okay? And that should be more than adequate. Just a little bit.
In regards to our brake pad wear sensor, I'm just going to zoom out a tad bit. This is only on the passenger side, on the rear side. So just to show you quickly, this is going to be on the nearest side, sorry, the further side away from you. So that's going to be on the inside of the disc. Okay, we want the wide notch in this slot. Okay, so that will just pop straight in. You'll have no issue with that, and I'll show you how to install this in a second.
15mm bolts, so in between the disc, like so. And we're just going to hand thread just to start it off, okay? So just catch them on. You might be a little bit wiggly, just catch them in. Once you've got both threads in, then we can begin to tighten them up, okay?
Okay, so we're going to install our pads now. So without the wear sensor, that's going to go in that orientation. So we're just going to line that up in between the shims. There we go. Rear pad, that's the one with our wear sensor. Just going to leave that hanging for the time being, pop that in, make sure it's in between both shims. Okay, there we go. Now, most important part for the wear sensor, that needs to go through our caliper, okay? So pull that all the way through. Pinch back on both our squares. That will allow our caliper to sit in, and then we can start threading in our 13mm bolts. Once again, line it up, pinch back on that square. That will allow it to sit in. Make sure it lines up. Again, just catch the thread, hand tighten them in as much as you can, and then send them in. Just to make sure that's nice and tight, 19mm back on the square, and just notch them up. Last step, we're going to get the wheel back on and then drop it back to ground. Okay. The vehicle is still in the air. All we've got to do is drop it down, but just before that, as another precautionary, we've got a wheel chock on the front. We're just going to pump the brakes a couple of times because we have retracted the piston, and we're going to pull up that handbrake just so we don't roll forward. So all we got to do now is bring this home. Job's done. Last thing, we need to torque our bolts 120 Newton meters each using a torque wrench, 21mm. Torque them all up in a star pattern. Job done.